Howdy, everybody, and welcome to what are we calling financing STRs in 2023. I lost the title there for a second. Welcome. I am super excited. My name is Kenny Bedwell. I'm the CEO and founder of STR Insights. But we're not here to talk specifically about STR Insights. We're here to talk about financing deals in 2023 because in financing short-term rental deals specifically, because let's face it, things have changed. The market has shifted. What worked yesterday, how we ran our numbers, how we worked with lenders and what they were able to use and not use has changed today. And so what I want to do is I've got a good friend of mine who is probably one of the best guys I know at understanding and working with lenders and kind of being able to get the best deals and opportunities out of the financing products that they offer. And I wanted to bring him on because he brings a different perspective. He's not a lender. He doesn't loan people money. He doesn't work for a bank. He's getting deals himself. He's got a construction business. He's got like over 100 different properties, and he's getting different types of products, loan products. And he's always getting the best deals possible with them. And I want to bring him on and to kind of help you guys and hear his strategies and the things that he's doing to basically help you figure out what's the best financing for you, because it'll vary. And something too, I've seen a lot of people make mistakes on is they'll get the wrong loan. And so when they go to get their second property or their third property, they've eaten up all their DTI, or maybe they had a DSCR product and it's eating up their cash flow. And so it just depends. So he's really going to lay out the roadmap here for you guys and help you understand what you need to do to get the right financing in 2023. And then also some of the pitfalls we as investors make when running the numbers, especially when it comes to financing. So without further ado, let's give a drum roll, a round of applause, and I'm gonna bring in Mr. Jon Hodge himself, the bank whisperer. I'm gonna flip us around, John. There we go. All right, there we go. All right, welcome, John.
Thanks, Kenny. Appreciate you having me. I was expecting a little bit of maybe a Bulls intro. My fog machine was broken. I like to have some kind of like excited entrance for me, but this is
I know. I should have said welcome, John.
Stretch out.
Yes. Anyway, so I like to call John the bank whisperer, and you'll hear that around. That's kind of his token nickname now, because man, this guy knows how to actually like talk to banks. And I've seen it. I've seen him like working on deals. It's like, I don't think anybody could have got financing except for Mr. Jon Hodge. So John, let's take a step back real quick. I guess, can you introduce yourself a little bit more? Tell us more. I kind of gave a high level here, but tell us more about you and kind of why you're qualified and what, what's your skill?
Sure. I guess my skill is, never taking no for an answer. That's kind of what I've grown up with. That's what I have always strived for. There's always a better way to do things. And, my blessing and my curse is that I obsess over these, to the point where everything to me is dialed in, is calculated. And I think that, I have used kind of a methodology of leveraging relationships, and that has led to massive amounts of funding. I got started in the investment space in 2016, just like everybody else, right? It all started with one house, one property for me. My family really didn't have a lot of investment stuff. They didn't have their own businesses. My mom was a teacher. My dad worked in sales. And it was just going to be up to me for what I wanted to make of it. And so I had been in construction since 2011. And, what happens with construction is that you're pretty much broke all the time for the first 3 years. And then at about year 3 or 4, you start to actually make money, but it's money on paper. So you actually don't receive the money till about year 5, year 6. And so it is an interesting thing because, the concentration, you'd think of like, oh, well, let's look at profit and loss. Really, the only thing you're looking at is cash flow. And so after I got to that 5 or 6 year mark, I started to receive in large amounts of cash and everything. And so I knew that what I needed to do was to get it in investment vehicles. I had stroked a check to the IRS for a large sum of money, and it crushed me. It was so tough to do that. So I had some guys that I had aligned with and that I had bridged with, and that basically taught me the game of real estate. And these are guys that had 3,000 and 4,000 units. They were big heavy hitters, and so the caveat to that was that after I'd gotten my feet wet with just a single family home, they showed me how to buy multifamily, and they taught me that game. And so I've had a diverse mix of real estate. I've got over 118 doors, give or take. We have some that are in new construction phase. We have some that are being rehabbed right now. We have some that are up and live. We've got some long-term, short-term. I've even got sprinkled in a little bit of arbitrage.
Oh.
And I have, I think about the farmer's commercial. I know a thing or two because I've done a thing or two. And that's where I got kind of like my education was from the School of Hard Knocks.
That's awesome. So, okay. So how long have you been in the short-term rental industry?
Yeah. So I bought my first short-term rental in 2016, and it was a tiny little 1-bedroom in downtown Memphis. And well, can we bleep that out? I don't want to give away the honey hole.
Downtown Memphis. You're not invested at all in Memphis anymore, right?
That's right. Terrible place.
Terrible. Don't go there.
So at the time, I did not know what I was going to do with the property. All I knew was that $85,000 fully furnished, I'd be able to make something with it. And so ended up getting it set up, studied with a few guys that were in that specific niche, and saw what they were doing. And what I realized very quickly is that at that time, it's different than the Airbnb time now, right? You didn't even have to be like good or even that clean to like run an Airbnb and make money with it. So I saw this as really low-hanging fruit and said, I know that I can do way better than these guys that have taught me what to do. So I kicked it off, generated $43,000 year one, and cranked out about a 65% cash on cash return with that property.
Wow, that's awesome. Congratulations. So you've obviously expanded, and how many short-term rentals do you currently manage or run or own or whatever? What's your short-term rental count?
It's in the 30 unit range. And that's going to be a mixture of single family homes. I've got some lake property. I have a beach condo. I've got several condos in a downtown urban area. I've got a couple of townhouses there. And then I'm also in the middle of rehabbing a boutique hotel, mixed use space.
So, I mean, the magical question, I'm sure in a lot of people's minds, that's around 30 properties, maybe more. How the heck are you financing these deals? Like, what's your strategies? Just go into it.
So the easiest thing to do is just to become a trust fund child, and that's not the route.
That would be the easiest thing to do. But for the rest of us, John.
But if you can't do that, then I started relationships very early on with banks that got to know me, got to understand my business. I would spread out my deposits. And what I was looking for and what I ended up targeting is I was watching what was getting financed around me, who was doing the financing on it, and which banks kind of like to do a certain thing. So every bank kind of has their niche, and this is what they're good at, and this is what they like to lend on. And so I would try to target banks that were already lending in the space. So it took a little bit of coaxing to, introduce myself, talk about what I am and what I do, show them some other things, and just kind of build a confidence level that when they saw Jon Hodge, they knew that, hey, there was going to be success around this. There was going to be, a nice product there. I was always talking to them and showing them pictures and showing them the small success stories.
Mm.
And yet I was not getting any loans from them yet. And that was planting seeds and getting the relationship built so
So
that when it, go
not to
ahead.
cut you off here, but I mean, are you talking like the Bank of Americas, the city banks, the key banks? Like which banks are you doing this with?
Yeah. So for me, I found that the local and regional banks from about as small a size as probably starting out about $1 billion to about $1.5 billion in size is really, I felt like, the sweet spot. They have some offerings that they can broker in and that can really have some advantages. And they'll also continue to keep a portion of their loans in house, which
Mm.
allows for a lot more freedom of underwriting, a lot more kind of relationship lending. I know you'll hear Bill talk about the commercial lending that he had, and it was relationship lending. And so the numbers the numbers have to be there for sure. But we've all been in situations and scenarios where the numbers have been there and we fell short when it came to the loan package, or we fell short when it came to the appraisal piece of it. And having that relationship with that bank is that extra edge that you can get with sometimes, a few weeks, sometimes months, sometimes years of relationship building.
Wow, yeah, that's great. So, what I guess from this was you were working on this relationship for several years. So, can you kind of say what are the things you're really looking for in those banks? It's a local bank. You just kind of told us the size. How do you start that relationship? How do you kind of seek them out and then build that, from the ground up? Like who are you targeting in that bank? The
Yeah.
manager, the teller, you grab them outside, or like what do you do?
Yeah. So, man, it's a spider web. So, what I do is when I go in there and I'm going to a branch, I am going to first do some research on their website, and I'm going to cruise down and find out who their senior lenders are and find out who the folks are that are really not going to be a bank president, although I have had a situation where that's where my relationship started. And I'm going to be looking for you've got to build two relationships. Number one, I build relationships with the tellers and the branch managers, and kind of that's where my checking, and that's where they can size me up financially there. And then I'll typically have them introduce me to their senior lender. And one of the first things that we have to ask these lenders, and this is, I'm coming out of the gate with this, is typically I'll give them a verse about, kind of what I do and everything. And then I will immediately ask, what is their loan limits? What can they approve
Mm.
so that I can size up? Okay, am I talking to a person who can make the full decisions here for something of $1 million in loan? Or is, everything that's over $500,000 going to have to go to his boss before it goes to committee? So understanding what the bank structure is of how they get loans approved is going to be kind of a pretty hot topic for me, and especially at the very beginning. I talk to a lot of banks, and the last thing I want to do is waste their time and waste my time.
Mm. Yeah, no, that makes sense. So, are you? I mean, so these are local banks. So, I mean, this is only local to the area. So, how do you've got deals in different parts of the country? How are you structuring that? How are you finding banks in those markets? Like, what are you doing there?
Sure. So, one of the first things that we do, and I know that me and you have looked at properties together many times, and after initial underwriting and really it's kind of runs parallel with the underwriting of kind of how we're going to be building out our performance that we do on any of these properties that we're looking at. But I'm going to be immediately fielding banks and what size banks are around there. A given area, graphical location. I'm going to be doing research into my into my already trusted lenders that I have, finding out if they're going to be lending in these areas. As you get into more tertiary markets and smaller ones that are outside of larger cities, it's a little bit tougher to get a lender there unless they've already established loans in or around that area. So I know that we've been thwarted from properties that they penciled out, they made great money, they had the sauce, right? They were perfect to do. But unfortunately, the lending was so tough. Within about 14 days, we had to kill the project because of the hurdles that we were having getting a loan on this product. And keep in mind that it's not so much the hurdles to get into the project, but think about what the hurdles are going to be when you've got to get out of that project and sell to somebody else, right?
Yeah.
Because if we think that we're financially sound and we've got, kind of a lot of our superpowers at play, think about how tough it's going to be for the average person or another investor to be able to come in there and take over and sell at a profit.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, and that's something too that we talk about in the accelerator program. So for those of you who don't know, Jon and I are both on the STR super team, if that's what you call it. And one of the biggest things we start out in that accelerator program that we're doing, and we'll talk about that at the end, is that exit strategy. Like if nobody else can get a loan for that property, like that makes it hard to sell. And if you're wanting to sell that property, if it's not going to cash flow or whatever, if it's tight, it's dangerous it's actually increasing risk there. So I think that's really, really important. It's understanding that exit strategy play. So when it comes to short-term rentals and just in general, so what was the difference between now, the sentiment from banks now and before, I guess before 2022 when the rate hikes started?
Yeah. I've had a bit of an up and down relationships with banks, believe it or not. I have, if you've ever gone through a loan process and, we were in the scale of 2 million plus in loan, and I've had banks back out 4 to 10 days before closing. Oof. And that can really sour the mood for that relationship. It can really sour the mood for your deals. You've already spent a lot of money getting to that point, due diligence items, all that kind of stuff. And, these are also banks that may come back around to you. So understanding that, people have told me before, like, look, everybody's got a boss, right? Everybody's got somebody that they got to answer to. And a lot of times these banks, they have a boss. They've got somebody who's saying, hey, look, we've got to pull back. This is what our strategy is now. And I think that we've had such rapid movement up and down that it's been very tough to keep up. It's almost like gotten magnified. Some of the deals where they blow up or, they just don't pencil out. We are seeing, what I'm seeing is still from banks today, they are still aggressively loaning on properties, but you're not seeing nearly as many loans. Well, why is that? Well, because they don't pencil out, right? Because the numbers are, not able to service the debt properly. The numbers are not able to provide a profit for folks there. And so there's going to be a downward push on prices there. And I think that we've looked at properties in the beach market, right? And we are probably seeing anywhere from an 8% discount up to about a 12 to 14% discount in list price versus purchase price. And it's going to continue to do that as interest rates rise. If you're buying essentially on cap, or if you are buying for the income of that asset. If you're in the homeowner space, right, you're buying in areas where it's predominantly, homeowners are going to live there, and you're like, well, this is a great market. I think that that's going to continue to rise because, or at least stay stagnant, because I'm not seeing a dip in ones that are going to be possible for a live-in, or if you're dealing one that are on the regular standard home market. People are still paying a premium to have nicer things.
That makes sense. Okay. So someone actually posted this in the comments about, so are you mainly referring to commercial loans, or is this kind of in general for all loans? I mean, they specifically asked about going to committee, which is for commercial products typically, but what are you seeing for people who are just trying to get second home loans and maybe DSCR loan products, or, conventional loans?
Sure. So I think that, I want to make sure that we emphasize that second home loans, conventional investment loans, those are great products. In fact, those are likely going to be one of the more viable products that we're seeing in today's market, with the interest rates being so high. They're still operating and kind of selling at a discount there in comparison to where the commercial rates that I'm seeing are. And it's not by much, but right now, every percentage point matters, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because we're kind of at that teetering point where we've really got to make sure that our numbers work. So with those things there, and I know that Bill has kind of talked about it before on several podcasts. We go into great in-depth look in the accelerator program, but it's your level of preparedness. And what I've built out is a level 1, level 2, and a level 3 for building your bankability. We go over those in really, really great detail, and I know that you've seen those. They're a little bit painstaking at first, but after you have your stuff built out, you really do become easier to lend to. And having to understand pro formas, and can you build those out? Do you have your tax returns, 3 years of them, ready to go? Do you have any of your pay stubs on your current market, or maybe current P&Ls that they may be looking for? How long does it take you to run your liquidity statements? Are you running separate business tax returns for any of the small business owners there? If you get that from a banker out of the gate, it's going to feel like an avalanche of information. And it's like, man, all right, how do I start? Okay, I'm going to sit down here, and we get so excited about this property here, and we don't take the time to kind of build this out in the background there. The folks that we're able to train with and get them to commit to putting, really in a couple of hours, we can have almost everything kind of really built out, ready to go, staged on either a thumb drive or in a Google Drive there, ready to be fired out. Those are the folks that are going to get the loans. Those are the ones that are going to be able to make quicker moves into markets there.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And I want to add this too, and I'm sure you'll agree, John, even if you're like, well, I'm just going to get a second home loan, I don't need to, worry about, everything. I'll bring it to the lender when they need it. They're still going to work with me. That might be true, but what's your ultimate goal with your short-term rentals? Is it to scale? Because if it's to scale, then you need to start thinking how and understanding the things and concepts that John is teaching right now, because you're going to have to go for commercial loans. You're going to have to do these other things. You're going to have to be very bankable. And the sooner you can learn those concepts and apply those concepts, the quicker and easier it'll be to actually scale.
Yep. And, the unfortunate part is that I talk to people all over the U.S. in regards to loans, loan products, their STR situations. And when they realize that they got a bad loan product, it's typically after they've already gotten the loan.
Right.
And, well, I didn't really read this, or I didn't really understand this, or this is what I saw on the Facebook group as everybody was doing. Right. And so that's when I really, Bill took me aside and said, listen, everything that you've got as far as your experience go and as far as, what you're able to do, people need that information. People need to understand really what they're signing up for. And that's why I don't want to sell a product of a loan or any kind of thing. I want to have a completely unbiased opinion of saying, hey, listen, I've looked at all the products out there. I've seen all these things. This is what I recommend today. And that may change tomorrow, right? DSCR products were great for people in certain situations. They're not so great right now. That you can't get them to pencil out with the interest rates there. People are kind of looking at it saying like, well, where do I go next? What do I do next?
Yeah.
And that's where there's so many things that have to be taken into account when not only you're looking at the market, but you're looking at, what do you have as far as how lendable are you?
Yeah. So what, I guess I want to dive into that for a second. I mean, I even got into that DSCR craze. I have one of those products. It worked for me, back at the beginning of 2022 and the rates were still decent. However, it just doesn't make sense now, 9s and 10%, for the mortgage. So what products should people be looking at today? If they're, I can't do a second home loan, what should I be looking at?
Yeah. So really understanding, I like to look at about 3 products per property when I run my performance. I am going to be, I've got several requests for my performance sheets. I know that you've worked in them before. I know that several folks in the mastermind groups, everybody in the accelerator gets a copy of those. And we're trying to work on getting that out there so that people understand what they have options wise to even look at. Because from a cash flow perspective, that's just one element, right? We need to be looking at what is our principal pay down in the first 3 or 5 years? What is our interest payments that we're going to be paying in those years? Do we need to be looking at stuff that's amortized over 20 years or 25 years or even 30 years? Now, I know that there's probably some folks out there that said, man, did he just speak Chinese? Because they're just not in the numbers there. And it's okay if it's not your strong suit, but you need to be aware, at least on a basic level, of what these items mean and what they entail. And I think that there's no better way than to get with individuals who can walk you through what does this product look like and what are the other options out there. So every performer that I'm going to be doing, I'm going to be looking at least 3 products. One of them is definitely going to be a commercial. I have also just been, I did a big refinance not too long ago, and it looks like I may be back in line to start getting some conventional investment loans. And so if that's going to be the case for me, you're going to probably see me take advantage of that. At least, again, it's based on the path that we have to those end goals, just to kind of re-up without having to get crushed by this interest rate hike.
Okay. So you talked about so someone asked, what are the 3 products that you typically look at? So you talked about a commercial product, a conventional product, and is there a third one that you're?
So it would be the non-QM, which would be like a DSCR. We have our conventional investment, which is going to be a Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae. This can also kind of be for service members. They have VA loans, which are really great right now. I'm encouraging everybody who is able to access those, that now is a great time to access those and to understand those a bit. And then you're also going to be having things like your second home loan, and making sure that you're understanding, what are those limits there? What can I do with that? What can I not do with those? I think that there's definitely a lot of information out there. And then lastly, it's going to be your commercial loans, your portfolio loans. Some of them are even, I have some guys that are looking into doing balance sheet loans. So Balance sheet loans will be where you have, a slew of assets, and, they've got different LTVs, and a bank may consider essentially loaning on your equity portion that you have across several assets in order to give you a good interest rate on a new purchase there. So not everybody's going to be qualified for that, but it's definitely a point to start having conversations with your banks regularly. In fact, I just talked to my bank 2 days ago, and he was just calling, and I, of course, answered, and he said, "Hey, I was just calling to check in. I just wanted to talk to you about the market, what's going on with it, what products we're really lending on right now, and what we're not really lending on right now." For this particular bank, they were doing a lot of loans that were sub $1 million, and so I'm kind of going through my head of saying, okay, would I have any products out there that I'm looking to purchase that would be under $1 million in loan? So we're getting some things set up, starting to get some quotes, and we may be back in the game here very shortly.
That's awesome. Okay, so you kind of gave off a good list of different products. So, but I think the underarching theme here is you need to have that relationship with your banker, and you can actually talk to your banker to see what type of products they offer to see if anything that fits what you're going
Sure.
for. Right?
Sure. And not only that, but also building out, understanding what else is offered in the market, because our bankers may not be totally aware of all the products that they can offer. They may just be, familiar with the few that they've just offered out recently. And so asking about, hey, listen, I've heard about a loan that does this, and it acts like this. It's amortized this way. This is the principal pay down. I've educated bankers and who've been able to go back out to market because they're acting as a broker at that point, and they say, "Hey, we actually do have that product, and we can offer it to you. This is what our origination would look like. This is what our loan fee and commitment would look like." And we were off to the races there. But I think that getting educated on what all is out there can provide huge advantages in 2023.
I love it. I love it. Let's take a couple questions real quick. So somebody asked about, with Google Drive, personal financial data on Google Drives. Do you have security concerns with that?
So we use a series of kind of hidden and locked folders. Through that, we have a certain labeling system that we will do. With that, there are secured services that you can pass that information on. But look, at this point, if somebody wants to get your information, they're likely going to get it.
That's very true. Okay. So, and obviously like the flash drive local, like not online is probably the safest to go. So
Sure.
Keep that in mind too. Or
absolutely
classic, just paperwork. So hard copy.
I'll never forget, when Bill was talking to us about, his packet that he put together for his bank, and he brought it there. It was paper. It was paper. Yeah. It was so old school. It had the pictures in there, everything drawn out. And I was like, man, this is freaking awesome. That, but it laid everything out with the property. It allowed him to be able to leave a permanent story with that banker, which is, I believe, Luke down in Gulf Shores, so that he could go out there and relay that to his board, needed board approval for it. And so it was the best way to make sure that nothing got missed, nothing got forgotten about.
Yeah, no, I used to, that reminds me, I used to, when I was in high school, when I was applying for jobs, and I was in high school during like right before and during the recession in 2008. And in that period going into college too, I remember like seeing just stacks of applications, just like everywhere. And so what I started doing is I would put my application in a red folder, like a bright red folder. And I always got phone calls. When I started doing that, I always got phone calls. And so sometimes that hard copy, like, like you're saying, provides, it's someone, they have it in hand. And a lot of these bankers are old school.
That's right.
Especially the local ones. And so that kind of helps them and keeps them, oh, wow, this guy, he speaks my language and that feel. Now somebody asked a really good question. So if you guys have questions, put them in the comments. below, and we will answer them as they come. So someone asked, I love this. So they're talking about you got to have all your paperwork lined up. You've built a relationship with a senior loan officer. How do you negotiate, or can you negotiate a better rate with them at all?
Yeah, absolutely. I've done it many times. I think Kenny, you've seen it there in real time. And number one, I think that my biggest advantage is that I exude confidence. You know that when I talk to you about what my situation is or how it's going to perform there, that it is spoken with such confidence. It's almost real to you. It's almost like it's already happened, right? And so that number one is going to be there. There's going to be a confidence factor there. Second thing is that they have what they would say is like people that they lend to that get better rates, that they get lower origination fees, that don't have to get as many. It's not a black and white thing. I've had folks, come to me and say, "Hey, listen, my bank's asking for 3% of my origination. This is the loan product there." I said, "No, you need get it at 1.5%. Well, how do I do that? Well, you ask or you tell them. It's one or the other, right?
Yeah, don't take no for an answer, right?
Yeah, this is the way that's going to do it. And what I tend to go back to is that, we always want to make sure that we present it the right way, but a lot of times the strategy that I'll use is say, look, I want this to pencil out to use you guys, but this origination fee is really crushing my numbers. It's really not making it worth doing. Another strategy I have is that typically when I'm going in for a loan, I'll have 2 to 3 banks ready to loan to me on that same product there. I'm comparing every single fee, every single item there. I can't tell you the number of folks that come to me and they don't even know what their origination fee is until they're headed to closing. And so because they're not asking, they don't know what to ask. And so when you start to ask those questions, those are some strategies to do it. Another strategy is put a link. Ask them if there is any deposit discount for holding money with them. I don't typically start out with a deposit, but they'll ones that are doing my bigger loans, $1.5 million plus. Those are ones that say, hey, listen, if you keep $50,000, $100,000 with us, we can bump this down just a bit.
Okay. Are you seeing, with changes in the economy today, are you seeing major changes in the lending restrictions? Has that recently changed? Like, what's kind of what's the general pulse you feel like for lenders today?
Well, today is relative, right? Because like a couple of weeks ago, I would have had a different story. And then 2 weeks before that, I would have had something different there. It's up and down. It is bank specific. And each of them, I don't think they know exactly what they want to do or need to do. But when I was talking to one of my more conservative banks, local here, used to not really want to touch any kind of STR. They were talking about, hey, listen, man, we just did a $1 million loan over in Nashville, and I know the returns are not going to be nearly as strong in Nashville, typically speaking, as compared to what they were in Memphis here. But he was excited to loan on that product, and I said, well, where did you get your data from? And it's like, well, they had a management company, been established for a long time. They were the ones that provided the numbers, and so I had been talking to this bank for years about, hey, this is the numbers. I've been showing them even returns. They had, and they even held the bank accounts where all the deposits were. So it wasn't like any of this stuff couldn't get checked out. And yet they were still reluctant to lend on STR. Now they're lending and actively lending on STR.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I know, so Bob asked, you mentioned building relationships is important, and we kind of talked about this earlier, but do you have any like last tips for building rapport for long distance investors in terms of like, oh, I'm looking in a completely different state at this new market. What do I need to do? What's your first, I guess, 3 things that you would do?
So number one, and I take this from Bill's playbook, is I'm going to be taking a trip to that location, and I'm going to meet with that banker in person. I'm going to meet face to face, because I can tell you that when I can get face to face with these lenders, it puts you in a different category of out of town investor, right?
Yeah.
You're able to, if you can't do that, at least getting a Zoom call with them is another alternative to kind of help that. It's not quite as good, not quite as impressionable, but it still is going to make an impact there. And then I will do what I kind of do is I will have a string of calls with them. If I can't do either one of those, okay, I'd have a string of calls that is not just totally business related. And what I mean by that is that I'm going to be calling for my purpose of business of what I'm trying to do there, but we're going to kind of put on the front end or back end or even both some side conversations. I'm going to ask about their family. I'm going to talk to them about how long they've been in the business. I'm going to talk to them about, well, what kind of they do any investments themselves. Getting to know that person there is going to kind of move the needle when it comes to getting a loan like that at a commercial and portfolio level.
Okay, cool. No, I appreciate that. Let's move. You were touching on it, and I kind of pull us away, but I want to get into it. Going back to the pro formas and running those and understanding those, what are some of the biggest mistakes investors are making, short-term rental investors that you see are making with their pro formas?
Man, how much time do we have on this podcast? Because I'm telling you, there's a multitude of mistakes. Number one,
three. There you go.
No, number one is that there's not a centralized format, which is kind of leading the pack in pro formas there. Everybody's are so different and they're so all over the board. And one of the biggest mistakes that I see is that if you are running a pro forma without percentage columns on your P&L, huge red flag to me, because it never gives you any indication of if you're high or low or you're missing something when it comes to your expenses there. And when it comes to your debt service, like, do you understand what is an acceptable range for those things? On every one of my pro formas that I've built there, they're all going to be coming with percentage calculations all right next to everything from the revenue stance to every one of the expenses to the debt service to the NOI there, because I can usually look at a pro forma and within about 10 seconds, I can tell you like, hey, this is somewhat accurate or this is like very off. And I think that people are just the information that they get is so fragmented in so many different areas that when they put it all together, they just assume that it's right. I don't know. This is what the data said, right? This is what this person told me about this mortgage there. They said, this is how it's going to work. And they don't have the understanding of, does this pass a litmus test? Just a quick back of the napkin of, is this too high on revenue? Is it too low on revenue? They don't really know.
So with the percentages, I mean, do you have like if you could say, for example, expenses, what on average percentage do expenses represent of your gross revenue?
So in this industry specific, I am typically running anywhere from 40 to about 50% on expenses, depending on a few different factors. Number one is going to be location. Number two is going to be property type and insurances and automation, how much automation's there. And the biggest missed expense that it just pains me to never see in these pro formas is the management fee. People are going and they're missing the point that this is, just because you have a return, if you're not paying yourself any type of management fee, if you don't even have a small carve out for that, you really may have just like, well, I just inherited a job, right?
Yeah.
I don't have an investment. I just got a job. Now I'm building equity with that job there, but I'm not getting paid for my services. And so that's probably one of the biggest misses in the space, as well as not putting in the proper revenue data. We talk about it all the time. I know I have slid in your DM many times to verify this information and to make sure that I am looking at this the way that I should, because you see the full range and spectrum on STR Insights, and that you can make or break a pro forma depending on where you choose, as your comps.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you touched on an important part there with the management fee. So even if we're planning on self-managing, we should have some sort of management fee?
Absolutely. It is you have to be able to fire yourself out of the business at some point. And as you scale, every position has to be replaceable, including your own position, right? Because we're not doing this to get rich. Some people are, but this is not a get rich play. This is a build wealth play. And you're never going to build wealth, number one, with single digit returns. You're never going to build wealth single digit returns. Number two, if you are in that business and you can never remove yourself from it, you are not building wealth. You're getting rich. Big difference.
That's interesting. Oh, wow. I love that. Give us a like, everybody.
Sorry to come off so strong, but
no.
Very passionate about it.
Yeah. Okay. Couple questions. So do you run a good, better, best model when you do your pro formas? Do you just run one pro forma, or do you look at different type, different numbers, occupancy rates, ADRs? What do you do?
I feel like this is an underhanded pitch to me here. I mentioned earlier in the broadcast. I mentioned earlier in the broadcast here that I am obsessive about it. And Bill and everybody on the STR super team has kind of seen this firsthand. I think the accelerators have seen just a small smidgen of it, but I have built out 17 performance for a single property purchase before. It was a lot. But if you looked at all the varying factors, I had 4 different banks with all 4 different ways to finance it. I had my plays of buying existing, doing a value add, or doing a lipstick remodel there. And so each one of those factors there, all of those get a good, better, best for every scenario there. So we want to make sure that we are precise when we get into these markets so that it's a great turnout when we want to exit the market.
Yeah, I love it. Kind of a last question here from somebody, George. Do you what you were calling expenses, do they include the essentially debt and taxes?
They include the taxes. They do not include the debt service. So I run a similar model to, mine was derived, that I built out was derived from a multifamily stance. And debt service is never calculated in your expenses piece there. I know that people, when they're referencing their cash on cash return, they are inferring that their debt service is included with it. But really what we're looking for when I build these out is I want to understand my net operating income, which is going to be my top line revenue minus each one of my expenses, including a management fee. I forbid you to leave this call today and not pencil in some kind of management fee, right? I mean, yeah. I know I sound like Mr. Terrible. I mean, Bill Faith here, Mr. Wonderful, with how I'm referencing to do it there, but it is essential to do that with. Management fee is in there, your utilities, your taxes, everything that it takes to kind of build that out. And then also a big mistake that I'm seeing is the cleaning fee. How do you handle that, right? Because it is a revenue generator, but then there's also an expense side with it. And so what I'm seeing from banks right now is that they want to see it go in as a revenue, and they want to see it expensed out in the end. They want to make sure that nothing's left out.
Yeah, no, I like that. So I think this is really interesting because, and people listening, like, it's not just about how much money a property is going to gross. You need to understand the expenses. You need to understand how to use a pro forma, because that's what banks use to underwrite deals. They're looking at the expenses, they're looking at the returns, they're looking at the debt service coverage ratio, and they're looking at all these other things, the cap rate, even some of them will, and to understand if this is a good deal. And so if you're like, well, I don't understand what, Jon was saying, NOI or net operating income, or, the debt service coverage ratio, or what cap rate, well, any of these things are cash on cash. You need to study these out. You need to learn about these, because that's how you're going to really build deep relationships with bankers, because you got to speak their language, right, Jon?
That's right. Absolutely. And it's essential, when you're ready to take a next step forward, or I would say that if you've got some properties now and, you're like, hey, I'm an investor, I kind of know what's going on here. How often are you looking at your cash on equity returns, right? Me and Ryan Bakey, another super team member there, we have been working on a cash on equity return spreadsheet. And we did this due to myself having to take a look at my portfolio and saying, what is my return rate based on all this equity that I have here? And what would it look like if I were to do a full cash out refi? Now, for those of you that may not know, your full cash out refi is the single non-taxable event that will happen in the career of your asset there, that you can go deploy and do anything you want to with it. Mm-hmm. And so it can be a huge driver when you're trying to build wealth and you're trying to acquire more assets, that you may have kind of like, you may be sitting on it and may not even realize, like, where am I going to get the money from? Well, let's take a look at your equity. Let's see what kind of return rate you're going to get on that. Let's see what the difference is between your current interest rate. And, I know everybody's like, holding on tight, like, oh, I can't let go of my 3% interest rate. It would kill me. It would crush me. But what's your return rate for the alternative of redeploying, right? Are you able to pick up a bigger asset there? Are you able to increase your cash flow? And so if you're not doing that analysis there, reach out. Let me know if you need some help with that, because I think that it's one of the biggest, it's what's going to separate people that are going to get stuck with the hobbyists that are in this business versus the ones that are taking this as a true business.
I really like that. I really like that. So Jon, we've got some people asking, like, where, how can I, learn more, the pro formas, the terms, everything that we just talked about. What's the best way that you believe that people can learn this stuff?
So, number one, we have built out this super team here, right? And this is encompassing of everybody who is the experts in their space. I'd say number one, we've got an availability for accelerator. Number two, I have a website, jonhodge.com, that I am going to be posting out and sending out some emails on to send out some more education tips. So you can sign there. You can always follow me on Instagram. I post a lot of stuff out there, maybe too much at times, of what's going on in the marketplace and kind of how to do that, who to follow there. And the biggest free resource got to be the host library and Build Short-Term Rental Wealth. That to me has had, the biggest base model of education that's free. It doesn't cost anything. So if you're worried about the money of going into something like the accelerator, then that's an excellent resource. When you understand what it's going to cost you or what it has already cost you, a lot of times people are just looking for a faster, more fire hydrant-like education.
So, okay, let's back up a little bit, because some of the people might not know what the super team is. And can you tell us about super team and the accelerator?
Yep. So the super team has been put together by Bill Faith. that encompasses everything that you need to know for start to finish, literally from inception of why do you want to be in this space to finished launched product, deploying marketing ads, and everything in between, from the law side and legal with Jeff Hampton at STR Law Guys. Kenny, you had up the greatest data. I'm just going to go ahead and say it in the space, because of the precision on it, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's definitely other sources out there that we use to kind of get understanding for, but it's the precision that you're able to offer there that allows us to strike quickly on things. Ryan Bakey, the Wonder Kid, who is, I think he's not MIT, so don't let Bill fool you with that. but he is extremely smart. He is one of the most advanced tax guys that I've worked with in the real estate space. He's another obsessor. Avery Carl, who has, really, you talk about somebody who's got market data, right? She is the market. She has had, I think she's in 15, 16 different markets right now, and has been helping STR investors before it was STR investors, right? It was just, she kind of gave birth to that. And then Chris Wharton, who is the mad genius behind the marketing components. And I do believe that if you don't have some sort of form of marketing with your STR units, that you're going to be falling behind.
100%. Yep. I totally agree with that. I've been deploying ads and stuff myself. So yeah, I mean, just the stuff that Chris teaches. So the super team, we all have these special skills, and we put together the accelerator program. What is that program?
Yeah. So it is an 8-week walkthrough of everything that we've dealt with in the market. You've got, I think it's like now 15 videos that you can watch on your time. I know that people are just so limited. Some people have full-time jobs. Some people have different constraints. Some people are night owls and they can only watch at a certain time here. And they're able to kind of go at their own pace. We've got a live group meeting every single week that we take questions on. We do live scenarios. So people that are headed to purchase, or they don't know how to, get over this hump there, we actually take those scenarios and we meet about them separately and go through them. We've had emails that have been sent in saying, hey, this is where I'm at with this. I don't know what to do. Right. And the fact that we've got everybody there in one group working it all through, and then we're able to get back with that person and say, this is what our opinion is on it. This is how, it needs to lay out there. And the other secret piece is that it's the Facebook group. The one that is, it's a private Facebook group. You're in it in perpetuity. And it is just a more concentrated group of other investors that went through the accelerator course that has just a lot more, there's a lot more meat on the bone for questions and for responses, and kind of puts us all in the same thread. Facebook has it to where not everybody on the super team is going to be able to see that thread. And we're so limited on the fragmented information that we can give. In this other group here, we're able to all take a look at it. It comes directly into our main feed there, and we're able to, essentially collaborate on there right there live on the spot. I know we do a lot of live videos there, and it's just a great resource for anybody that's looking to start, anybody that's looking to grow, and anybody that wants to refine their process. So the other nice thing is that the videos that are created, they will get a lifetime access to that. So as we update, as markets change, as new content gets added there, they'll always have access to that. So tremendous value.
Yeah, no, I love that. Yeah. And I mean, guys, the thing about the accelerator, whether you're interested or not, I mean, it's for people who are looking to grow in this space. So whether it's your first one or your 10th property, you're learning from the pros across different, in specific areas. And I mean, like even we're talking about how to automate your business through using VAs. I just created a whole program. I have 13 VAs myself. And so I'm breaking that down for you guys in that training. So, check it out. It's down below. I put that down below. But Jon, hey, I appreciate you being on here. So what's the best way if somebody has specific questions about financing or pro formas or banking relationships? How can they get in contact with you? What's the best way?
Sure. So jonhodge.com is that's Jon, not John. Jonhodge.com.
Just make sure Jon, or he'll get on to you.
I can barely spell my own name. Is going to be primary. I am also got an email of Jon, Jon, at jonhodge.com. I can be found on Instagram, Jon Hodge 1. And you can find me in the Facebook group. So reach out. Let me know what you're having issues with. Let me know what I can help with. And appreciate you having me on and just being a part of this awesome movement here.
Yeah, thanks, guys. So there was one question by Gary. Said, can you repeat how to access the host library? What's the website? Where is that?
Yeah, so that's going to be as you join Build Short-Term Rental Wealth. That group, there's about 25,000 members in there. It is headed up by Bill Faith. As you get introduced into that group there, he will grant access to the host library, does a little intro there, and it's an awesome library and resource for people.
Great. Thanks, Jon. I appreciate it. So excuse me.
Oh, easy. You okay?
Yeah. Anyway, thanks. Thanks again, guys. If you're on Facebook, give us a like. If you're on YouTube, please subscribe if you're not already subscribed, and give us a like. Thank you so much, Jon. I appreciate it. And I'll see you guys next